Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stacy. This is going to be the books that I liked the least from 2022. I'm kind of nervous about making this because I know at least one of these books is pretty well loved in the community. I love watching other people rant about books or talk about the books that they didn't really like and give all the reasons for it. I find that kind of stuff fascinating. And I love how we all have different tastes and we're not all going to like the same book. And I think that's normal. But yeah, some people get pretty riled up when you say something they don't like about their favorite book. So I'm going to talk about my lowest rated books. I went through Goodreads and found the books that were rated 2s and 3s. And I know we all rate kind of differently. And for me, a 3 is just a book I really didn't care for. I didn't really enjoy the book, but maybe the writing wasn't bad. Maybe I can explain my rating a little bit more as I go through the books. I'm going to also add a couple books that I DNF'd because I seem to go too far when I'm not enjoying a book. I will read like 80% of the book before I give up. And so I feel a lot of times once I've reached that point, I do rate having an opinion on it. So yeah, I'm going to throw in a couple DNFs here too. Starting out with some of the 3s that I have on my list is Lost in Darkness by Michelle Griepe. Again, I gave this a 3 because the writing itself is not bad. I think Michelle Griepe is an excellent writer and I actually really love some of her other books. But this story in particular, I did not like what she did with it. The ending really messed me up. And if you haven't seen Celestria's Worst of the Year video, you have to go watch that because she is hilarious when she talks about this book. And I pretty much match her feelings on this. But yeah, this book was incredibly difficult for me to read. It not only was I very unhappy with the ending of it, I also did not like the parts with medical mistreatment. I don't deal well with that, so just so much of the story was not for me in particular. But again, the writing wasn't bad, so I gave it a 3 stars. Another 3-star read for me was One Little Lie by Colleen Coble. That is a romantic suspense, I believe. I don't read much romantic suspense, so it's not really my genre, and I don't really like contemporary books, so that was kind of 2 strikes against it for me. But a big thing that I did not enjoy about it was so over-the-top dramatic. I just felt like she threw everything you could possibly throw into a story. There were so many elements of it that I was like, this is so unbelievable. This would never happen like this. I just could not wrap my head around all of the things that were going on. I actually wrote too much drama and crazy story for my review. So yeah, a story like that just is not for me. But again, 3 stars because she's not a bad writer. Another 3-star read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This one is not Christian fiction. It's a secular thriller. I guess it's considered thriller book. This one is very much well liked amongst a lot of people and I did not care for it. I used to read a ton of horror and I feel like Riley Sager took so much of this story from other horror books and wrote it in a way to where he even said this is similar to Amityville Horror, but he used so much of Amityville Horror in the story. It was kind of like a rewriting of Amityville, and if I were still into horror, I would rather read Amityville because that's a better story, if that makes any sense. And also, again, I thought a lot of this stuff was over the top, especially with the ending. That ending made me crazy. I did not like it at all. But again, the actual writing of the story wasn't bad, so I gave it 3 stars. Another 3-star book was, and I'm going to get in trouble for this one too, is Fawkes by Nadine Brandes. Excellent writing. Nothing at all wrong with the writing. It, again, is just not really a story for me. It is like fantastical historical fiction, and I like fantasy on its own and I like historical fiction on its own, but I did not like the mixing of the two. I really struggled with the fantasy elements of this book. So much of it just did not make sense to me. Even after it's all been explained multiple times, I don't get it. I just don't get it. There were so many different fantasy elements between the stone plague and the color magic and the masks. it was just kind of overwhelming to my brain, and it's just really not a genre that I like. I also did not like the main character, Thomas. I found him to be incredibly angsty, and the older I get, the less I can tolerate angst in teenagers. So yeah, I just wasn't that much of a fan. But again, the writing was fine, so 3 stars. The next 3-star book was Prophet by Frank Peretti. And this made me sad because I love This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness so much by Frank Peretti. But this story, again, it was contemporary, which is not my genre, but it was so heavy on abortion stuff and medical mistreatment. Again, I don't deal well with that sort of topic in stories, so it's just not for me. I also would have really loved if there was more of the prophet part of the book. Going into it, I thought it was going to be more about this main character and his ability to hear God and things like that, but I feel like that was a very small part of the book, and the majority of the book had to do with like news, journalism, and abortion stuff. Again, the writing was good, so I gave it 3 stars, but I really didn't enjoy the story. All right, time for some 2-star reads. The first one is Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson. I think I really disliked this book because of the main character's family. I think her family treated her like garbage. So I think this was one of our Christian book club picks, and all of us went into it thinking it was supposed to be a Christian book because it was from a Christian publisher, but there was no Christianity in it whatsoever, so that was disappointing. And again, it's contemporary, which really isn't my thing, so 2 stars. The next 2-star is one that I think was on like everybody's list this year, rated pretty low, and that is The Enlightenment of Bees by Rachel Linden. This one was again supposed to be a Christian fiction read, but it was very new agey. So much about the book was new age kind of stuff, which I do not like. And I also really did not like the main character. At the beginning of the book, she lies so she can go on like a mission trip, and that did not sit well with me. It's also contemporary, so no surprise there. I just didn't like it. So yeah, 2 stars. Another 2-star read was Short Straw Bride by Karen Whitmire. This should have been a book that I loved because I loved historical fiction, especially if it's set with a Western setting and with cowboys, ranches, things like that. I normally love that kind of story. What I didn't like about this book is it was a Christian fiction book, and there was good solid faith in this book, but the like sexual parts, sexual innuendos, the girl was constantly thinking about sex and wanting her husband, her new husband, to come be with her, and just constantly thinking and talking about it. And I found that to be really strange for a Christian fiction book. A little bit of it is fine, but I felt like it was over the top. Okay, and the last 2-star book that I have, and this is the one I really don't even want to talk about, it is The Souls of Lost Lake by Jamie Jo Wright. And I know I am very much on the outside when it comes to feelings on this book, but I did not like this book at all. I feel like all of the Christians in this book were portrayed terribly. If I was not a Christian who was reading this book, I feel like it gives the wrong impression of Christians, especially with the preacher in this book. The relationship that develops between the preacher and the girl, it was so cringy to me. This girl, and I'm calling her girl because she's young, and I got yelled at online for that. I kept calling her girl, and people were like, but she wasn't a kid, she was grown. Yes, she was like 18, 19, but she came from such a traumatic background, and she had never had any kind of love or any kind of good emotional attachments with any person. And the first, guy that comes into her life is this preacher who I feel like should have had better boundaries with her and had a bit of understanding of the turmoil that she was coming from. And I feel like there is no way on earth that she would have been ready to be in any kind of relationship, especially with her preacher, the shepherd of the flock. Like that just, it weirded me out so bad. I also did not like all of the gruesome imagery that was put into this book. It wasn't just like, and there was a murder, or and this person got stabbed. It was very well described. And coming from my background of horror, I have certain convictions that I just cannot handle. So yeah, this book was not for me. That being said, I have read most of her other books and I have enjoyed those. I especially did really like The Premonition on Wither's Farm. I read that not long ago and I thought that was outstanding. So it's not the author, but this particular story, not for me. Okay, here's a couple books that I DNF'd. I won't talk about them too long, but I did get pretty far in them, so here's my thoughts. The first one I'll talk about is Synapse by Stephen James. I DNF'd this one because I did not like the main character, and I have discovered that I am very much character driven and I have to like characters. I did not like her at all. It was a woman who was like a minister or something. And for me personally, there was some theology things that I just didn't agree with, and I didn't agree with her, and I didn't like her as a person. So I DNF'd that book. And so I gave up on it. Another one I quit was Romanoff by Nadine Brandes. Once I started reading it and realized how it was a mixture between fantasy and historical, I didn't like it. It's just not my genre. I also struggle with historical retellings of stories that I know, and I know a lot about the Romanoffs, and so reading this fictional account was messing me up, so I DNF'd it. And the last book that I'm going to talk about that I DNF'd, and this was the worst book that I read last year. One of the worst books I've ever read, honestly. I really, really dislike this book, and I'm so sad about it because of the authors. But that was House by Frank Peretti and Ted Dekker. I should have known better because this is a horror book, and I thought I could deal with it because it's supposed to be Christian horror, but this book was gross. There were some scenes in this book that I was just like, ew, why would you write this? Why is this here? It was grossing me out. There were really disturbing scenes in this book. This book was like the movie Deliverance. If you guys have ever seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. It was like Deliverance mixed with some kind of fantasy elements, some kind of like magical elements. It was really, really bizarre and disturbing and disgusting. And once I got to a specific scene that was just gross, I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. I don't enjoy this at all. Worst book I read in 2022. All right, guys, that is all I've got for this video. I am so glad it is over now. Although I still have to edit it, I'm probably going to be upset while I'm editing it. I'm sweating. I literally do start sweating when to me, this feels confrontational. Does that make any sense? Do any of you guys feel that way? If you have a book that you're kind of ranting about, does it feel confrontational to you? Because I feel like I've just been in an argument, although no one is actually arguing with me yet. But right now, I feel like I've been in a confrontation and I'm sweating. So anyway, I'm gonna go. I hope you guys have a great day and I will see y'all soon. Bye.